Get in on the action this season with Underdog's Pick'em game. Select higher or lower between 2 and 8 players and compete for up to 325 times your entry. Use code DIRECTOR when signing up to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. Go to Bolt, fam. It's the Director. Chargers fans, you know what time it is. Do you know what time it is? Matter of fact, we're going to take this out so you can see the full impact of what time it is. It is Raiders week, baby. Two of my favorite weeks in the regular season. And man, this one's just different, isn't it, Chargers fans? I know we don't like reliving the past. We don't like reliving the trauma from last season, but I think vengeance is due. Are we going to get it is going to be the big question here, though, because there's some things happening this weekend that's going to determine whether or not the Chargers even throw their starters out there to give us the opportunity to stomp the Raiders into the ground. I think, a lot of us would like to see that. I think sentimentally as Chargers fans, we need that as a terms of closure to put that game behind us. And I think there's a good chance of that happening. Should be a very interesting one as we dissect the Chargers playoff situation, different scenarios, this game, and a little bit of news regarding the Pro Bowl and even some signings the Chargers making here at the last second. Before we get into all that, man, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog. Use code DIRECTOR. One last time to receive bonus cash up to $1,000. Newcomers take advantage of the Bijan Robinson free pick. It's a great way to support my platform and have some fun along the way. And of course, we're going to be throwing picks out for the playoffs. The Chargers are going to be in the playoffs. That's a really big deal. But the last regular season weekend of NFL football kind of snuck up on me, didn't it? Kind of snuck up on everybody. Take advantage of it while you can. Get your feet wet and support the channel in that way. Before we do kick off, hit us up with the like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into it, baby. Lights, camera, action.
Who's got it better than us?
It's Raiders week, baby. Let's go. Stay hydrated. Let's get ourselves a sample of Denzel Perryman out there this week. Can we please? First off, spot of news. Okay, I know a lot of Chargers fans excited to see the Pro Bowl roster roll out this past couple of days. Of course, there's going to be some snubs in there. I get it. Okay, there's a lot of guys that we love that turned out to be alternates, which is fine. But 3 big Chargers players making the AFC Pro Bowl roster. Very exciting. Congratulations are due. Let's see some 3s in the chat for our guy, Derwin James, who really has had a standout season in his very, colorful career of dominance at the safety position, of versatility at the safety position. He's had a very nice standout season, one that boasts so far a career 5.5 sacks. He still has the 1 game left, and I'm thinking he's brewing up at least one more this week versus Aiden O'Connell. Also, let's put some 70s in the chat. Lots of us excited about newcomer Joe Alt, the rookie sensation, but let's not forget the staple at left tackle, Rashawn Slater. 70s in the chat for our left tackle bodyguard of Justin Herbert, who has once again had another outstanding season. And then finally, Pro Bowler, what is it now? 9-time Pro Bowler Khalil Mack attack. He's back. 52's in the chat for our big guy here, man. Excited to see what he produces in his last game versus the Raiders. Again, there's implications all over the place here. Khalil Mack contract year. Is this his last opportunity to sock it to his old team? We'll have to wait and see. But congratulations are due to our Chargers 3 Pro Bowl roster selectees. Very exciting stuff. Then last spot of news right here. I thought this was kind of funny. Not the biggest news in the world, but something I thought was hilarious, okay? Especially for any of you guys that play Madden Ultimate Team. All right, the Chargers just signed Terrell Edmonds, excuse me. That would have been crazy, right? Terrell Edmonds to the practice squad. Seeing as we're kind of a revolving door of safeties nowadays, right? We had Alohi Gilman, who's maybe coming back. We have to wait and see. Marcus May, Tony Jefferson, Eddie Jackson, who was signed a few weeks ago, and then now Terrell Edmonds. Oh, this Chargers Madden Ultimate Team theme team is going to be so flush with safeties for the foreseeable future. Exciting stuff right there. And you know what? This is a good signing, right? The Chargers have become this team that takes, maybe the thrown away, the seen better days or past their prime players and bring them back to relevancy. And I think that, let's keep it going, man. We saw Marcus May pop. We saw Tony Jefferson's popping. Of course, none of these guys playing to their prime, but they're contributing. And I think this is definitely one of those signings you want to make, as the Chargers safety position is very important. Now let's jump into this game, man. The Chargers, Raiders, first things first, who's playing, who's sitting. This one feels a little cut and dry to me. We don't really, actually, I wouldn't say completely cut and dry, because we don't completely know what's going on with guys like, Poona Ford. It feels like he's going to play. Ladd McConkey, of course, it feels like he's going to play. Khalil Mack getting his rest. But again, nothing too complicated out here, but are we going to see Josh Palmer? I don't know who's going to have to step up in lieu of him. We got a guy on this list that we're going to talk about here in just a second. Gus Edwards, will he be ready to deliver the hammer, or I should say the thunder, to the J.K. Dobbins Lightning? We'll have to wait and see. But those are the guys mainly to keep an eye on, Gus Edwards and Josh Palmer. On the Raiders side of things, no Amir Abdullah. Of course, I think we're going to see, is it Alexander Madison mostly at running back. And then you're probably going to expect to see the rest of the roster being played up this week. Very important note, though, for those of you guys who aren't aware, the Raiders-Chargers first matchup, a little scary on paper because, of course, we're going up against Max Crosby, one of the best edge rushers in football. And, of course, their new signing Christian Wilkins. Both of those guys not playing this week. Of course, I think with both of them on IR at this point. That's definitely going to be a shift in what we saw in the first game, of course, which the Chargers did win. Definitely not have to worry about those two guys in this Week 18 matchup. That being said, what do we have to deal with here? Again, at quarterback for the Raiders, Aiden O'Connell. We call him Farva around here. We got at wide receiver, Trey Tucker, who could be kind of fast. Jacoby Myers. The big one being Brock Bowers on offense that we're going to have to watch out for. Of course, one of my favorite players from the most recent draft. Let's see if we can lock him down. But, he's having a stellar rookie season. Good for him. And in terms of defense, I mean, there's a couple of guys here. The Raiders have an okay defense. I'll go ahead and give them that, right? Polamalu, definitely not too bad. Morig's having a decent season. Their edge rusher guys in lieu of, Max Crosby and stuff, they could end up being a problem. I think the biggest one right here is Spillane, right? Linebacker, leading the team in tackles right now. Definitely not too intimidated, but you can't, take these matchups lightly. The Chargers, Raiders, a rivalry as old as time. They're going to be out here trying to play upset, trying to, spoil the Chargers' chances at moving up and seeding. It'll definitely be something that we want to be cautious of because, of course, if the Raiders were in this situation, Chargers fans would, of course, want to spoil it for Vegas as well. Now, the big thing I think is going to be on a lot of our minds this week as Chargers fans that have been around a long time through, very many eras of poor GMing and coaching, and especially last season with Brandon Staley and Tom Telesco, who is now with the Raiders organization, making the same mistakes, might I add. That Christian Wilkins, very exciting at the time, but they massively overpaid him, and that's absolutely something the Chargers would have done in years past. But no, we're thinking about the last time this team matched up in Week 18 of the regular season, which of course was in the 2023 year. And I don't have to remind you guys what the score of that game was. And ultimately, you got to look at it this way, right? Raiders fans have been pushing this number in my face for an entire year, okay? Of course, the score of this game. Well, I don't think we get Jim Harbaugh had it not been for this game. I think if you go, you're taking a look at in terms of like a movie, right? They're going through there's a Raiders fan in 2055, right? Who's like, man, the Chargers have been unstoppable. There have been 20 years of dominance. How do we stop the pain? We got to go back in time, Terminator style, and figure out where, in the timeline, this branch exists. It all started with this game. The Chargers just getting their lights stomped out, humiliated in front of GM Dean Spanos. It had to happen. Unfortunately, this game had to happen for the pivot, the very dramatic and a huge pivot in terms of leadership. In order for that to happen, this game had to be. But it doesn't mean we have to be okay with it, right? We got Jim Harbaugh. The Chargers went from a 5-win team to at least a 10-win team. Playoff, in our sights. I still want to stomp the Raiders. I do. And you know what? I'm not the only one who thinks so. There are Chargers fans all over the world who felt disrespected, who felt humiliated, embarrassed from that performance last year. But you know who feels it the most? Those players. Derwin James, Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Justin Herbert. These Los Angeles Chargers have been fed up a long time, and finally their time has come. The Jim Harbaugh era is here, and I think there is blood in the water. I think vengeance is due, and I think the narrative is absolutely transparent for this team, for these players, and I hope that they do start. I do. Part of me thinks let's play it safe. Let's go into the postseason fresh and ready to go. There's another side to that we're going to talk about here in just a second. The other part of me really does want to stomp the Raiders lights out, give them a taste of their own medicine, and introduce them to the Jim Harbaugh era the way we did in Week 1, taking him down in our home opener. The situation. Now, will the Chargers get this opportunity? This will be the big question on everybody's minds up until Saturday, and I'll explain why. The Chargers currently in the playoff picture sit at the 6th seed in the AFC with a record of 10-6, currently facing up against the Raiders. All these matchups, I would say these top 3 right here are going to be decently important, right? You got the Ravens and the Browns, you got the Steelers and the Bengals. The AFC North is going to be a big determining factor on who we play, of course, as well as our performance versus the Raiders. We can't, log that as a win quite yet, but I'm hoping the Chargers are ready to take them on. As of right now, if the Chargers were to sit at the 6th seed, go into the postseason with that seeding, they would be facing off against the Baltimore Ravens. All right. And honestly, like I've stated many times before, I think I'm down, man. I'm down for a Jim Harbaugh, I should say Harbaugh 2, Harbaugh the sequel, Harbaugh the postseason Pomanza. I lost my wording because the excitement of another Harbaugh just takes my words away, man. And it's another chance at redemption here, man, because just like this game, the thought of the embarrassment and the coming up short and just all the things that revolved around the game versus the Raiders last season, I kind of feel the same way about this Ravens game. It feels like at this point things changed for our season a little bit. It took us a few games to get back on our feet, and now we have a chance to redeem ourselves, and for Jim Harbaugh to face his brother again. And this time stand on top in one of the more, I should say, in absolutely the more important environment, the postseason. I'm down for that. And I would absolutely welcome that and cheer on the Chargers and hope for the best. But if you're looking for the Chargers' best opportunity to advance in the postseason, to make it past the playoff game number 1, wild card week, if you want to see them progress, I think the team all of us want to play are going to be this team right here, the Houston Texans. And there's one thing that needs to happen in order for that to work out. This matchup up here, the Bengals versus the Steelers. If the Bengals, who are very motivated to win, they are still in the playoff picture, in the hunt, they were to win this game, and the Steelers were to lose this game, this would vault the Chargers with a win, by the way. So the Bengals need to win, Steelers need to lose, and the Chargers need to win. Okay, so those two conditions. If this were to happen, the Chargers would move up to the 5th seed, and then lo and behold, we are facing up against the Houston Texans, who are right now a 10-7 team in the postseason, which I think a lot of us would say our chances at beating the Texans are probably higher than beating the Ravens. But either way, I'm happy to be in the postseason. I welcome whatever matchup comes to us. But if we're looking for the easier route through the postseason, we want this to happen. So keep in mind, this game, the Bengals and Steelers, this is going to go down on Saturday. So the Chargers are going to have an idea of what's at stake on Sunday when we play the Raiders. Does that make sense? The Chargers on Sunday will know that if they win this game versus the Raiders, if it's going to take them to the 5th seed or not. It depends on what happens in that Bengals and Steelers game. Which leads us to believe, or leads us to the talking point, to start or not to start. And this is kind of in consideration of both scenarios here. The Chargers, let's say we do go into Week 18. The Bengals just beat the Steelers. The Steelers now sweating that the Chargers are going to beat the Raiders and steal that 5th seed. and the better matchup. Are we going to start? Obviously, we're going to start our starters that game. We're going to try and, maybe get a lead very early, try and get Justin Herbert off the field in the fourth quarter. But ultimately, you're going to throw your starters out there to give yourself a better and clearer path through the postseason. That's what you're going to want to do. But what if, and this is maybe the more likely scenario, that the Steelers beat out the Bengals, and the Chargers are going into this week saying, hey, we can't get any better than the 6th seed no matter what we do here. If we sit, we're the 6th seed. If we start, we're the 6th seed. What is the risk reward here? And this is kind of where I'm at with that. I think if the Chargers are stuck at the 6th seed, I still would throw the starters out there, but maybe not for the whole game. And that's because of a hugely important concept that I preach on this channel all the time: momentum. I think this Chargers team has been on an upswing. I think you're seeing very many different dynamics of the team clicking and operating to where the coaching staff wants. It's producing wins. It's producing momentum. I think you want to protect that. In order to do that, you got to get your reps in. You got to protect that momentum. And I would say let's throw the Chargers starters out there at least a quarter or two to keep them fresh, keep them ready, keep them rocking and rolling, and keeping that momentum on our side. That's kind of where I'm at with that, okay? There is also a version of this where, Harbaugh understands the environment, the players, the narrative. He's more of a old school. We're gonna win every single matchup, no matter what the narrative is, no matter what the seeding looks like. Like, we're out here to win. That could certainly happen too. But if you guys were to ask me, if the Chargers can't play up for the 5th seed, if it's impossible to improve, I would still throw the starters out there, but in limited capacity. Okay? That being said, what are the points of this game to pay attention to in order to create that momentum? Okay, because that's kind of the big point of this game for me. Chargers, Raiders, yeah, the narrative's big. The rivalry's big. The stakes are low, maybe they could be high. We don't really know that quite until Saturday. But again, for me, it's the momentum thing. And you're seeing some awesome momentum swings happening in the last few weeks, right? Of course, the Chargers absolutely obliterating the Patriots was absolutely something that you want to see. But more importantly, we're seeing guys come back. Will Dissly's come back. J.K. Dobbins has come back. Alohi Gilman may be returning in time for the postseason. There's a lot of revolving narratives that support a Chargers momentum push right now. And I think one of the biggest ones that's going to go underlooked by a lot of fans, it could have by me as well, had I not seen the entire season very clearly and been in person at the game where J.K. Dobbins went down. I was there for the Ravens game when he went down, and then everything shifted after that. The offense couldn't find its footing. I think this is an important J.K. Dobbins game. Now, J.K. Dobbins does have some incentives. I think it's something over like 130 yards or something like that. Somebody help me out in the comment section. If he reaches a certain amount of yards, he's going to get some bonuses in terms of his contract, which is something he's going to want to play for, right? But on top of that, J.K. Dobbins being number one, healthy, knock on wood, and number two, in that momentum swing, right, is going to help this Chargers team's chances of advancing in the AFC wildcard dramatically. Because when he's on the field for whatever reason, and I guess you could dissect it and say, yeah, the run game opens up the pass and this and that, and he's a great pass protector and blah, 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 blah. For whatever reason, when J.K. Dobbins is on the field, this offense is clicking. And we saw last week, J.K. Dobbins, he went for like 70 yards and a touchdown. He's back. He is back, baby. And he hasn't really missed a step. And if we can continue building that momentum, I feel like it's going to increase our chances at being a very capable offensive team in the AFC wildcard, no matter who we face. And we're going to need it. If it's the Ravens, we especially are going to need it. So J.K. Dobbins, let's get him some carries. Whether or not the starters are out there the entire game, I think we need to see his big playability. Of course, there's no Christian Wilkins. There's no Max Crosby. A good opportunity to build some of that confidence, some of that momentum. Keep him healthy. Again, knock on wood. And that's the risk you're taking. But this offense jives with J.K. Dobbins. Now, would I be surprised if, again, there's nothing on the line, the Chargers couldn't improve? Would I be surprised if they sat him, if they rested him? Absolutely not. I would say this is one of the top players you probably want to rest this week if that were the case, just given his injury history, right? But the other part of me says, hey, dude, the momentum's big. He's a big part of this offense. Let's make sure he gets his reps in, that he's ready for the AFC wild card in the coming weeks. All right. Speaking of momentum swing, man, Justin Herbert's momentum swing has been awesome these past few weeks, man. Taking this last matchup versus the Patriots and just, again, it's not about beating these bad teams because you expect to beat these bad teams. It's the way that you beat them. And Justin Herbert went out there and put on a show, dropped 40 points on a Patriots defense. He's getting hot. He's getting aggressive. He's using his feet. He's spreading the ball around. He's building chemistry with Ladd McConkey, right? He's getting this offense going. This is what you want to happen and when you want to have it happen. Justin Herbert is out here. And again, just like with J.K. Dobbins, okay? In the case that we need to start everybody, yeah, let's go out there. Let's build a lead. We can get Herbert off the field as soon as possible if we can. And then when I say build a lead, I mean let's stomp the Raiders' lights out so that we can afford to sit Herbert a quarter or so, just like we did with the Patriots, right? You saw a Taylor Heineke take over the last quarter of that game. Let's work for that, right? And then on the other hand, if we don't need the starters out there, let's just make sure Herbert's out there, continuing to build that momentum, making sure he's nice and prime and ready for that playoff push, say playoff run. Because Herbert, as a Chargers fan, and I've said this a few times, realistically can see dry spells where his momentum is on a downswing. That takes a minute, right? I think this season it took a few games, like 2 or 3 games, where he started swinging back the other way. And now I feel like he's reaching that point right now. He's still on that upswing, and I want to continue that as long as possible. In order to do that, let's build some momentum. Keep the receivers hot too, man. This is a very big, huge, I would say, part of this offense these past few weeks. Ladd McConkey, I think, and I'm sure I'm not the only Chargers fan that was spitting this out at the top of the season. I think we've all agreed that he's firmly cemented himself as the top receiver of this offense. He is wide receiver 1. Something I predicted at the top of the year. I'm sure something a lot of people predicted at the top of the year. Very talented receiver. Breaks 1,000 in his rookie season. He can still keep going, man. I wouldn't be shocked to see another 100-yard performance out of Ladd McConkey this week if we do need to suit up a majority of this game. Keep that going, man. It feels like, doesn't it? It feels like the past couple of weeks, that chemistry has blossomed into a very real threat for defenses the Chargers are facing up against. McConkey is starting to build that trust, that production that you look for from a Chargers wide receiver 1, and it's working, man. And I want to see that, that momentum continue with Ladd McConkey. And you know what? Yeah, other receivers have seen some nice success too. You're seeing a little bit of a bounce back from Quentin Johnson, who's still suffering from some drops, not as bad as last year, but he's making some big plays, certainly after he gets the ball and takes off, yards after contact or after receptions. It feels like he's becoming a reliable target more often than not. You're seeing, Josh Palmer, Will Dissly, these other guys become more involved, but make sure these guys remain hot. And let's experiment a little bit. Let's see what we got in guys like Darius Davis, who's had touchdowns in his last 2 contests, using that speed to his advantage, something that the Chargers have been looking for a long time while they've had Justin Herbert and that big arm. I say, why not? Let's see how that goes, right? Let's see it. Let's give him a couple extra targets just to see if it's something worth experimenting with further in the postseason. Darius Davis has looked really good. Not just in terms of his speed. I mean, his route runnings looks fine, but man, that catch last week, that built a lot of confidence for me in terms of getting him more involved past just the returner role for this team. So this is the opportunity to do so, right? If it's a week, even if, let's say, the starters do sit, because you can't sit everybody, obviously. Let's throw some extra targets to Darius Davis, see what we got. Maybe there's something there in our matchup versus the Ravens or Texans. It could, I think, also end up being the Steelers. We got some stuff in here. A big narrative that I'm going to be following very closely is this one that's very near and dear to my heart. It's the Bosa and Mack Raider finale. Now, this is something that's difficult for me to speak of because I'm a huge Joey Bosa fan, believer, stoked about his addition to the team since he was drafted. Been rooting for him a long time. I know his last couple of seasons have not been, what you were wanting in terms of health. But I'm a big Joey Bosa guy. That being said, I think this may be his last year with the team. I think it's mainly due to money and injuries. Chargers just doesn't feel like something that they're going to extend past this year, at least keep on their roster past, because they would have to cut him or trade him. Khalil Mack contract year. Who knows what's going to happen with that? I would expect the Chargers to bring him back. But this may be the last opportunity for Bosa and Mack to play the Raiders together one last time in powder blue. And these guys have a great record versus the Raiders. Of course, we saw, was it a 6-sack game versus the Raiders last season for Khalil Mack? Joey Bosa's had his share of Derek Carr sacks and whoever's starting for the Raiders. And these guys look like they're getting hot. Last week, they were really getting at Drake May. I feel like we're going to see a nice performance from them this week. Of course, again, they both get really hot versus this particular opponent. And I hope they go out with a bang in terms of their final Raider game together, because that has been one of the funner matchups to look for 97 and 52 on the field. All right. Finally, last two things I want to mention before closing this video out. A defense back to its prime. This is perhaps the most important facet of this football team going into the playoffs. The Chargers are the number one scoring defense in football. They stumbled a little bit, a few games there, giving up some big points. Buccaneers, 40 bomb. Even last week, 27 points. Or I should say the year prior to that, 27 points in that game. It feels like the last couple of weeks, though, especially in this last game, the Chargers are kind of getting back to that prime, limiting opponents in scoring, of producing big plays. Derwin James has been on fire. The secondary's really found an identity behind Tarheeb Still, Cam Hart, of course, the safeties that have been stepping in, and Tony Jefferson. Maybe we see some Eddie Jackson or something this week too. But the defense is really finding a rhythm right now. And this is going to be one of the biggest determining factors of course, winning this game. You want to see the defense really get at the Raiders this week. But I strongly believe that if the Chargers defense keeps this momentum, builds this confidence, builds the production that we've been seeing in terms of playmaking, that this is going to be one of the more dangerous teams in the playoffs for the AFC. It's going to be a team that, on paper people will say, it's the Chargers. I'm sure there's other teams saying, the Texans even. They're like, hey, out of all the scenarios, we probably want to play the Chargers because, we're the Chargers. We're the new kids on the block. But if this defense is as good as it has been previously, in the first stretch of the year, watch out, because they could end up being one of the more dangerous. And I want to see them prove that in this matchup versus the Raiders. Just like the Patriots, not how you beat a bad, or it's not the fact that you beat a bad team, it's how you beat them. I don't just want to beat the Raiders, I want to squish them. And if we can do that behind the effort of an awesome defensive performance, all the better. All the better. And this all kind of leads to my final talking point on the Chargers team specifically. Peaking at the right time. And this is something I've seen on social media, something I think was Jesse Minter talking about, or was it Greg Roman? This is what you want as a football team, as a football fan, as a coach, as a GM, as an owner, as fans of the sport, fans of this team, of the Chargers. This is what you want. A Charger team that makes it to the end of the season, double-digit wins, going into the postseason, but more importantly, you are on a huge upswing. We are peaking at the right time. The Chargers are the best version of themselves right now for the 2024-2025 season. And I want to see this game really put a stamp of, hey, watch out for the Chargers going into the playoffs, because we're peaking at the right time. Here come the lightning bolts, baby. If you're the Texans, if you're the Ravens, watch out. This is peak bolt performance coming your way. AFC West, or say AFC wildcard game. Finally, though, please, the love of all that's holy, keep this game in front of you, Chargers. Okay? I know it's easy. with all the narratives, maybe the starters are in, maybe the starters are not, whatever. Let's say the starters are in, the Chargers can play for the 5th seed. Watch out for the Raiders, okay? They've been known to do this, even in years that they've been really crappy. When you go into a division matchup and you have the opportunity to spoil for the opponent, especially a division rival, they can play up to their opponent. And I feel like this could be one of those situations. Be careful. The Raiders, they want to be wet blankets. Don't let them do that. Keep the game in front of you. Keep the score in front of you. Especially if you're playing up for that 5th seed. Take care of business. All right? Finally, my score prediction for this game. All that being said, I got the Chargers winning this one 37-12. Yeah, it's not 63 points, but it is a squish 'em game. And I want to squish these Raiders, man. I want to make a statement. I want the defense to allow less than 20 points. I want the offense to produce more than 27 points, we'll say 24 points. And I want this team to be primed and ready for a playoff run. If the starters sit and we end up squeaking by this game or even losing this game, it is what it is. But if we're playing for something, I want us to squish this team. All right? You guys let me know in the comment section below what your score predictions are. Good luck to my Chargers, baby. One last go of it in the regular season. One last go for guys like Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa playing together. Let's go out there, make this Jim Harbaugh era very real for the AFC West, in particular, these Las Vegas Raiders. Welcome to the Jim Harbaugh era. It's going to be a bumpy ride if you're an opponent in the AFC West. Well, if you guys enjoyed what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. Good luck to the Chargers. We'll see you guys live on stream Sunday to root for our Bolts and celebrate the finale of the NFL regular season 2024-2025. We'll catch you guys next time. As always, bolt up and stay frosty. Let's get me a Lad McConkey touchdown to celebrate the end of the season, baby.